You didn't fit in. It was a luxury cruise, my dad said when I discovered they used my money. I canceled every payment right in front of them. Now they're begging. I never thought I'd be the one to cut my parents off. But sometimes the people who are supposed to love you the most are the ones who hurt you beyond repair. The realization came on an ordinary Tuesday, nothing special about it, just another day of going through the motions. I was pulling into my driveway after a 12-hour shift at the warehouse. My back ached. My hands were calloused. Another day of honest work that left me bone-tired but proud. Mr. Jenkins from next door was watering his petunias. He waved as I killed the engine. "Mike, how's it going? Haven't seen your folks around lately. They are enjoying their cruise with your sister." My heart stopped. My hand froze on the car door. "What cruise?" He must have seen something in my face. The way his smile faded, the awkward shuffle of his feet. "Oh, the Caribbean one. Your sister posted pictures online. Your parents looked like they were having a blast in the Bahamas." I thanked him, somehow. I don't remember the words that came out of my mouth. I just remember the ringing in my ears as I walked into my empty house. The sound of my world crashing down around me. 3 days ago, just 3 days ago, my mother had called, crying, saying Dad needed medicine they couldn't afford, saying the heating bill was overdue, saying they might not make it through the month, and I had sent them $800, not the usual $600, because they sounded desperate. I sat in my darkened living room, staring at my phone, looking at my bank account. The automatic weekly transfers to my parents, every Friday for the past year, $600 like clockwork, my contribution to keeping them afloat, or so I thought. But now they were in the Bahamas, with Laura, my perfect sister who had never worked a day in her life, who married rich and looked down on my blue-collar job, who somehow still got all the praise despite contributing nothing. My hands trembled as I opened Facebook. I never used it much. Too busy working, too busy surviving. There they were. The pictures, Mom in a sundress I'd never seen before, Dad with a fruity cocktail, Laura and her husband Richard posing on the deck of a cruise ship. All smiles, all happiness, all funded by my sweat and sacrifice. I scrolled through the album, gathering evidence. The timestamp on the photos matched exactly when they claimed to be too sick to answer my calls. The geotags showed the Bahamas, the expensive restaurants, the luxury shore excursions. The deeper I dug, the worse it got. There was Mom wearing a gold bracelet I didn't recognize, Dad sporting a new watch. They had gone shopping in Nassau. That explained the extra $200 they'd begged for emergency medicine. The final blow was a comment thread under one photo. Laura posted how generous Richard was for treating Mom and Dad to this well-deserved vacation. My parents responded with heart emojis, and thanks to their thoughtful children. Children, plural, as if I had been involved, as if I hadn't been deliberately excluded while unknowingly funding their tropical drinks. I didn't cry. That would come later. At that moment there was only numbness, and beneath it something darker, something that had been building for years. Ray. I searched for more evidence, needed to know how deep this betrayal went. A quick check of my banking records showed the timing. My emergency transfer had gone through just hours before they boarded the ship. Another $800 straight from my account to theirs, tagged with the memo, Dad's medicine. There were other transfers too, regular withdrawals over the past 6 months that aligned perfectly with shopping sprees, expensive dinners out, weekend getaways I'd never been told about. I pulled up my text history, reread every desperate plea for help, every claim of an empty refrigerator, every guilt-inducing, "We understand if you can't help us this time," every thank you message promised they'd pay me back someday. All lies. Calculated, deliberate lies designed to extract maximum financial support while giving nothing in return. The story of how I became my parents' personal ATM started innocently enough. Dad lost his job. Mom's health was declining. They needed help making ends meet until they got back on their feet. I never hesitated. They were my parents, the people who raised me, who supposedly loved me, so I sent money, cut back on my own expenses, picked up overtime, did what a good son would do. But the goalposts kept moving. First, it was just until Dad found work. Then it was just until Mom's health improved. Then it was just until they caught up on bills. There was always a new crisis, always a reason they needed more. Meanwhile, Laura was their golden child, the daughter who made good choices by marrying a wealthy man, the smart one, the successful one. Never mind that I had built my life from nothing, that I had a steady job, a small but paid-for house and savings despite helping them, that I had done it all myself. No, Laura was the one they bragged about to friends. Laura was the one who got invited to family functions. Laura was the one who could do no wrong. And I was just the walking wallet, good enough to fund their lives but not good enough to be included in them. My girlfriend Anna found me like that, sitting in the dark, staring at those pictures, my phone clutched so tightly in my hand that my knuckles were white. Anna had been warning me for months, had noticed the patterns I'd been too blind to see. "It's always an emergency with them, isn't it?" she'd asked after my mother's tearful call about the broken furnace last winter. "And have you noticed it's always right before a weekend or holiday?" I defended them then, made excuses. They were getting older, times were tough. They wouldn't lie to me about needing help. But Anna had seen what I couldn't, or wouldn't. She'd pointed out how they never invited us to dinner but always had money for Laura's family gatherings. How they forgot my birthday but sent Laura lavish gifts. How they called only when they needed something but never to check how I was doing. She'd been right all along, about everything. She didn't say anything at first, just sat beside me. Let me show her the pictures, let me tell her about my parents' call for money just 3 days before. Then she held me while I finally broke, while the tears came, while years of being used and discarded poured out of me in great heaving sobs. Anna had always seen it, had always told me my parents were using me, that they favored Laura, that they didn't appreciate what I did for them. I hadn't wanted to believe her, because what kind of parents would do that to their child? Mine, apparently. The confrontation wasn't planned. I just found myself driving to their house the next morning, calling in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. The drive gave me time to think, to remember other suspicious moments I'd dismissed. Like the time Mom had called crying about property taxes they couldn't pay, while I noticed her wearing a new designer purse in a Facebook photo the very next day. Or when Dad claimed they might lose electricity right before I spotted him showing off a new set of golf clubs to the neighbor. Each memory hit harder than the last. The betrayal wasn't new, it was just that I was finally seeing it clearly. I'd been their safety net for years, their contingency plan, their personal bank with no questions asked, the reliable son who would sacrifice his own comfort to ensure theirs. Meanwhile, they'd been living the good life on my dime, taking cruises, buying luxury items, all while making me believe they were one missed payment away from disaster. Their car was in the driveway. They were back from paradise. Dad answered the door in his bathrobe, surprise on his face. Then wariness, he knew. Somehow he knew that I knew. My mother appeared behind him, nervous smile, hands fluttering like trapped birds. "Mike, what a nice surprise. We weren't expecting you." I just stared at them. These strangers who shared my blood, who had lied to me, used me, made me believe they were struggling while they vacationed on my dime. "How was the Bahamas?" The words hung in the air between us. Mom's smile faltered, Dad's face hardened. "You weren't supposed to find out about that," he said finally. Not an apology, not even shame, just annoyance at being caught. Something broke inside me then, the last thread of respect I had for them. 3 days ago you called me crying for medicine money, and then you went on a cruise. Mom had the decency to look away. Dad didn't. "It wasn't like that. Laura and Richard paid for the cruise. We just needed to spend money." My spending money. My hard-earned dollars funding their umbrella drinks and souvenirs. "And you didn't think to invite me, or even tell me?" Dad's laugh was the final twist of the knife, short, dismissive. "You wouldn't have fit in, Mike. It was a luxury cruise. Laura and Richard's kind of thing. You would have been uncomfortable. Code for you're not good enough. You're not like precious Laura. You're just the help." I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app. Right there in front of them, I canceled the automatic payments, all of them. The panic in their eyes was immediate, real in a way their affection for me had never been. "What are you doing?" Mom's voice was shrill, frightened. Cutting you off, find another ATM, I'm done. Dad switched tactics. His voice softened, the voice he used when he wanted something. Now, son, don't be hasty. We appreciate everything you do for us. We just didn't think you'd want to come. You're always so busy working. Working to support them, to fund their lives, to pay for trips I wasn't worthy of being invited to. Save it, we're done here. I turned and walked out. They followed me to the car, pleading now, promises flowing like water. They'd invite me next time, they'd be more transparent, they'd appreciate me more, too little, too late. I drove away with their voices still echoing in my ears. Missed calls lit up my phone all day. Texts flowed in. Apologies mixed with guilt trips, classic manipulation. I blocked their numbers. That evening the doorbell rang. I knew who it would be before I opened it. Laura, perfect Laura with her perfect hair and perfect clothes. The golden child sent to fix what the disappointing son had broken. Behind her stood our parents, and behind them Richard looking uncomfortable. The family united against the rebels. I almost closed the door in their faces, but Honor appeared at my side, squeezed my hand. We would face them together. Laura didn't waste time, launched straight into her practice speech. How I was being selfish, how our parents needed me, how this family had to stick together. You don't understand what you're doing to them, Mike, she said, her voice dripping with practiced concern. Mom's blood pressure is through the roof. Dad can't sleep. Is that what you want, to put them in the hospital? She pulled out her phone, showed me texts from our mother, crying emojis, claims that they might lose the house, that they were eating ramen noodles to survive, all dramatic lies crafted to manipulate my emotions. They raised you, sacrificed for you, Laura continued, her voice rising. Remember when you were sick as a kid and Mom stayed up with you for 3 nights straight? Remember when Dad worked double shifts to buy your first car? How can you be so ungrateful now? Rich coming from someone who had never contributed a dime to our parents' welfare, who had watched me struggle under the weight of supporting them while she lived in luxury. And what about me? She added, her final guilt card. I'm your sister, your blood. We're supposed to be there for each other, and you're tearing this family apart. Is that the brother I grew up with, the one who promised to always look out for me? She even manufactured a tear, one perfect droplet sliding down her cheek, the same performance that had always worked on our parents, on teachers, on everyone who fell for her act. I let her finish, let her run out of steam, watched our parents nodding along behind her, their faces hopeful, thinking their golden child would succeed where they had failed. Are you done? My voice was calm, steadier than I felt. Laura blinked, not used to being challenged. Mike, be reasonable. They're our parents. They raised us. And I've been paying them back for years while you did nothing but look down on me. Laura's face flushed, the first crack in her perfect veneer. That's not fair. Richard and I have our own expenses, our lifestyle. Your lifestyle, Anna cut in, her voice like ice, is not Mike's responsibility. Neither are your parents. Laura turned on Anna then, called her a gold digger, said she was turning me against my family. It happened so fast, Anna's hand in Laura's perfectly styled hair, the look of shock on my sister's face as Anna physically removed her from our doorstep. Dad tried to intervene. I blocked him. Mom cried. Richard just stood there watching his wife being humiliated, doing nothing. The door closed on their outraged faces. The lock turned, a line drawn, and for the first time in my adult life, I felt free. The fallout was swift, flying monkeys deployed, extended family calling to tell me how disappointed they were in me, how I was breaking my parents' hearts, how Laura was devastated. I changed my number. Coworkers were recruited to plead their case. I switched departments. A week passed, then 2. My bank account grew without the constant drain of supporting people who saw me as nothing but a resource. Anna and I planned a weekend getaway, something small but special, something I could never have afforded while funding my parents' lifestyle. The morning we were set to leave, my phone rang. A number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer. It was my father. Somehow he'd gotten my new number. His voice was different, defeated. The confident manipulator gone. Laura's husband had kicked her out, found evidence she'd been cheating, wanted a divorce, cut her off financially. She had moved back in with our parents, who now had both children at home and no income from either. They needed money more than before to support precious Laura in the style to which she'd become accustomed. The laugh bubbled up from deep inside me, started small but grew until I was gasping for air. Let me get this straight. You lied to me, used me, excluded me, and now you want me to bail out the daughter you always preferred? His silence was answer enough. Goodbye, Dad, don't call this number again. I hung up, blocked the new number, picked up my suitcase and turned to Anna, who was watching me with pride in her eyes. Ready for our vacation? She asked. I was, ready for that and so much more, ready for a life without the weight of ungrateful people on my shoulders, ready to finally put myself first. As we drove away from the house, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years, maybe ever, peace. The first month of freedom was an adjustment. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, panicked that I'd forgotten to send money. My thumb would hover over their contact information, the habit of checking in nearly overwhelming me. But those moments passed, and in their place came a new reality. I started saving for my future instead of funding their lies, opened a retirement account, planned for vacations that I would actually get to enjoy, made decisions based on what I wanted, not what crisis they'd manufactured that week. There were still moments of doubt, times when ingrained guilt would resurface. My therapist, something else I could finally afford, called it the fog, fear, obligation, and guilt. The tools my family had used to control me for so long. Working through that fog was hard. There were days I questioned everything. Was I the monster they claimed, the ungrateful son, the selfish brother? But those days grew fewer, and the evidence of how they'd used me remained undeniable. That was 6 months ago. I've heard through the grapevine that Laura is working retail now, that my parents had to downsize, that they tell anyone who will listen how their ungrateful son abandoned them. Let them talk, the people who matter know the truth. Anna and I are engaged now, planning a small wedding, just us and the people who genuinely care about us. My parents won't be invited, neither will Laura. Some might call it petty, I call it self-preservation. You can only be burned so many times before you learn to stay away from the fire. To anyone who's being used by the people who should love them most, it's okay to walk away. It's okay to prioritize yourself. It's okay to stop setting yourself on fire to keep others warm. Family isn't just about blood, it's about respect, appreciation, reciprocity. I found my real family, the one I chose, the one that chooses me back every day. Here's what I've learned through all of this. Love without respect isn't love at all. It's manipulation. Financial abuse doesn't just happen in romantic relationships. It happens in families too. The people most skilled at pushing your guilt buttons are often the ones who installed them in the first place. I've learned that boundaries aren't selfish, they're necessary. That helping others shouldn't come at the expense of helping yourself. That genuine love builds you up rather than draining you dry. Most importantly, I've learned that walking away doesn't mean you failed. Sometimes it means you finally succeeded in valuing yourself enough to demand better. It took me years to understand that I wasn't responsible for adults who refused to take responsibility for themselves. That their poor planning and constant crises weren't emergencies I had to solve. That being a good son didn't mean being a good doormat. If you're caught in this cycle, know that breaking free is possible. The guilt will fade, the manipulation will lose its power, and on the other side of that difficult boundary is a life that's actually yours to live. And I've never been happier.
You're overthinking this. It's just Wi-Fi, she laughed, when I noticed her phone auto-connected at my best friend's place. But she even knew where he kept his towels. I haven't confronted either of them yet. So I've been with my girlfriend Sarah for almost 2 years now, and we've been talking about moving in together once my lease is up in April. Things have been intense lately, but I thought it was just normal relationship growing pains. When we first started dating, Sarah was incredible. Like, almost too good to be true incredible. She'd surprise me with my favorite coffee, remember every little thing I mentioned, and made me feel like I was the most important person in the world. But over the past year, things have slowly shifted. She started making little comments about my friends, how Nathan was clearly jealous of our relationship, and how my college buddies were holding me back from growing up. At first I thought she was just being protective. Then the financial stuff started. Sarah has a good job in marketing, but she started having these emergencies. Her car broke down, her roommate bilated on rent, her mom needed help with medical bills. I helped out because that's what you do for someone you love, right? But it meant I was dipping into my savings, and when I mentioned maybe we should slow down on expensive dates, she'd get this hurt look and say things like, "I thought you cared about making memories together," or "money shouldn't matter when you love someone." The weird thing is, every time I'd start feeling overwhelmed or wanting to hang out with my friends more, something would happen. Sarah would have a panic attack, or there'd be some crisis with her family, or she'd plan something special for us. I started canceling plans with the guys more and more. Sarah would always say she understood if I wanted to go, but then she'd get quiet and withdrawn, and I'd end up staying home to make sure she was okay. My stomach is literally in knots writing this because I'm starting to realize how messed up this sounds, but at the time it felt like being a good boyfriend. So last night, we finally decided I'd move in with her in April. I was excited but also nervous. Living together is a big step. I texted Nathan to tell him the news because he's been my best friend since college. He offered to take us out for drinks to celebrate, said we could meet at his place first and then Uber to this new bar downtown. Sarah seemed hesitant but agreed when Nathan mentioned he'd pay for the first round. Here's where it gets weird. We get to Nathan's house, and Sarah immediately says she needs to use the bathroom. She's been to Nathan's place maybe twice before, always just briefly when we were picking him up to go somewhere. She sets her phone and purse on his kitchen table and heads straight to the bathroom without asking where it is. Nathan had gone back outside to move his car, so I'm just standing there. Her phone buzzes with a text, and she calls from the bathroom asking me to check if it's her friend Emma getting back to her about joining us tonight. I pick up her phone and that's when I see it. Her phone shows it's connected to Nathan Wi-Fi 5G. I check my own phone and his network requires a password. My hands started shaking. I mean, there could be explanations, right? Maybe she'd connected before during one of those brief visits. But I tested it, I tried connecting to his network and it immediately asked for a password. Her phone was connected like it remembered the network. When she came out of the bathroom, she went straight to Nathan's cabinet and grabbed a glass for water. Didn't hesitate, didn't ask, just knew exactly where everything was. I feel like I'm going crazy. The rational part of my brain is trying to make excuses, but my gut is screaming that something is very, very wrong. I haven't said anything yet because I'm terrified of what this means. If Sarah has been to Nathan's place enough times to know his Wi-Fi password and where he keeps his glasses, then my girlfriend and my best friend have been. What? Meeting up without me. I can't lose both of them. Sarah has become my whole world over these past 2 years, and Nathan has been my rock through everything. But I can't shake this feeling that my entire life has been built on lies. I don't know what to do. Am I overthinking this? Is there some innocent explanation I'm missing? I feel like I'm about to throw up. Edit. Holy shit, this post blew up. I'm trying to read all your comments. Some of you are asking if she could have connected to his Wi-Fi during previous visits. I thought about that, but she's only been inside his place twice before, both times very briefly, and she was with me the whole time. Also, his Wi-Fi name isn't something you'd guess. A lot of you are telling me to just ask her directly. I want to, but I'm scared. What if I'm wrong and I ruin everything over a Wi-Fi connection? But what if I'm right and my whole relationship is a lie? For those asking about the financial stuff, I've given her about $3,500 over the past year. It felt normal at the time because she always paid me back eventually, but now I'm wondering if that was part of keeping me financially tied to her. Update 1. Posted 2 weeks ago, you guys called it. Every single one of you who said, trust your gut, and this is classic manipulation. You were right, and I wish I'd listened to that voice in my head sooner. First, thank you to everyone who responded to my original post. The overwhelming response made me realize I wasn't crazy for being suspicious. I spent 3 days reading every comment, and the patterns you all pointed out made me start looking at my relationship with fresh eyes. I decided to talk to Sarah on Friday night. I'd planned this whole careful conversation, but when I looked at her sitting on my couch, acting like everything was normal, I just couldn't do it anymore. I asked her directly about the Wi-Fi. The conversation went exactly like some of you predicted. First, she looked confused and said she didn't know what I was talking about. Then she suggested maybe her phone had picked up a neighbor's network or connected to some random open Wi-Fi. When I pressed her on how she knew where Nathan's bathroom and glasses were, she got defensive. "Are you seriously interrogating me over Wi-Fi?" she said. "This is crazy, babe. You're being paranoid." But here's the thing, thanks to your comments, I recognized this immediately as gaslighting. Instead of backing down like I usually do, I stayed calm and kept asking questions. "Sarah, your phone was connected to Nathan's specific network. It had remembered the password. When did you connect to his Wi-Fi?" She got quiet for a long time. Then she started crying. Not the kind of crying that feels genuine, but the kind that's meant to make me feel bad for questioning her. She said I was being controlling and that she couldn't believe I didn't trust her. That's when something clicked. Over the past year, every time I'd question something or express discomfort, she'd turn it around on me. I'd end up apologizing and trying to make her feel better instead of getting answers to my questions. So I waited. I just sat there and waited for her to actually answer my question. Finally, she admitted she'd been to Nathan's place a few times when I was at work. She said they'd become friends and would sometimes hang out, and she didn't tell me because she knew I'd get weird about it. My blood went cold. "How many times, Sarah?" "I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 times over the past few months. It's not a big deal. 4 or 5 times. My girlfriend had been secretly meeting up with my best friend at his house while I was at work, and she'd hidden it from me for months. I asked her what they did during these hangouts. She said they'd watch movies, talk. Sometimes she'd cook for him because he never eats properly. She insisted it was completely innocent and that I was making it weird. But guys, here's what really messed me up. I started thinking about all the times over the past few months when Sarah had mysteriously known things about Nathan that I hadn't told her. Like when she brought up that his mom was visiting without me mentioning it, or when she knew he'd gotten a promotion before I did. At the time, I thought maybe I'd forgotten telling her, but now it all made sense. I asked her why she'd kept it secret if it was so innocent. "Because I knew you'd react exactly like this," she said. "You get jealous and possessive, and I didn't want to deal with it." This hit me like a truck because it made me question myself. Am I jealous and possessive? But then I remembered what one commenter wrote, that manipulators often accuse their victims of the exact behaviors they're trying to provoke. I told her I needed time to think, and she immediately switched tactics. Started talking about our moving in plans, how excited she was for our future, how this was just a misunderstanding that we could work through. She even suggested we could set better boundaries going forward. But I couldn't stop thinking about something one of you wrote. If it was innocent, why hide it? I called in sick on Monday and drove to my friend Marcus's place. Marcus went to college with me and Nathan, but he moved across town a few years ago, so I haven't seen him much lately. Sarah always said Marcus was negative energy and seemed to dislike when I hung out with him. Marcus took one look at me and said, "Dude, you look like hell. What's going on?" I told him everything. The isolation from friends, the financial emergencies, the secret meetings with Nathan, all of it. Marcus listened without interrupting, and when I finished, he was quiet for a long time. "Man," he said, "I've been wanting to say something for months, but I didn't know how to bring it up without sounding like a dick." He told me that he'd seen Sarah and Nathan together at a coffee shop near downtown about 6 weeks ago. They were sitting close, laughing, and it looked intimate. Marcus said he almost came over to say hi, but something about their body language made him hesitate. He said he'd been debating whether to tell me ever since. My hands were shaking as he told me this. 6 weeks ago was right around the time Sarah had that car emergency that cost me $800 to help fix. Marcus also told me something that made my stomach drop. He said that over the past year, whenever he'd suggest we all hang out or invite me to group events, Nathan would make excuses for why I couldn't come. Sarah needs him that night, or they already have plans. Marcus said he'd started to feel like Nathan was gatekeeping our friendship. I left Marcus's place feeling like my entire reality had shifted. I drove around for hours just processing everything. The woman I thought I was going to move in with had been secretly meeting my best friend for months. My best friend had been actively keeping me away from our other friends. I'd been isolated and financially drained, and I'd thought it was all just normal relationship stuff. I haven't talked to either Sarah or Nathan since Friday. Sarah has been texting me constantly, first angry messages about how I'm throwing away 2 years over nothing, then sweet messages about how much she loves me, then back to angry ones calling me immature. I'm staying at Marcus's place for a few days while I figure out what the hell to do next. My lease is up in 6 weeks. I've given Sarah money I can't afford to lose, and I don't know if I can trust my own judgment anymore. The worst part. I keep catching myself making excuses for both of them. My brain keeps trying to find ways this could all be innocent, even though every rational part of me knows it's not. How do you rebuild your life when you realize the two most important people in it have been lying to you? Edit. To everyone asking about confronting Nathan, I'm not ready yet. I need to get my head straight first. Several people have asked about the money. I went through my bank statements, and it's actually closer to $4,200 over the past year. I feel sick. Someone suggested I document everything before confronting Nathan. I'm starting a list of all the times Sarah mysteriously knew things about Nathan, all the emergencies, and all the times my plans with friends got derailed. Update 2. Posted 1 week ago. The support from this community has been incredible. Your messages and comments have kept me sane during the worst week of my life. I've been staying with Marcus and slowly piecing together just how deep this goes. I confronted Nathan yesterday, and it was worse than I imagined. First, some background that I've discovered since my last update. After talking with Marcus, I reached out to a few other friends I'd lost touch with over the past year. The pattern was consistent and terrifying. Tom from our college group said Nathan had told him I was too busy with Sarah to hang out anymore. Mike said Nathan had canceled plans on my behalf multiple times, claiming I had relationship stuff to deal with. Alex said he'd invited me to his birthday party 6 months ago, but Nathan told him I couldn't make it because Sarah had planned something special. I never received any of these invitations. Nathan had been acting as a gatekeeper, systematically cutting me off from our friend group while making it seem like it was my choice. But the financial stuff was even worse. I did more digging and realized that Sarah's emergencies had a pattern. They always happened right after I'd mentioned wanting to save money for something, a vacation, a new car, building an emergency fund. It's like she had a sixth sense for when I was getting financially stable. Yesterday, I finally went to Nathan's place. My hands were shaking as I knocked on his door, but I'd practiced what I was going to say with Marcus. Nathan opened the door and immediately got this guilty look on his face. "Hey man, I was wondering when you come by." "Were you?" I said. "Because you've been actively preventing me from talking to our other friends for months." His face went white. "What are you talking about?" I laid it all out. The Wi-Fi connection, Sarah knowing things about him, their secret hangouts, him gatekeeping my friendships. Nathan tried to deny it at first, but when I mentioned that Marcus had seen them together, he broke down. "It's not what you think," he said, which is apparently the universal phrase for "it's exactly what you think." He admitted they'd been hooking up for about 4 months. It started, he said, when Sarah came to him crying about how distant I'd become. She told him I was being controlling and that she needed someone to talk to. She'd come over to vent about our relationship, and one thing led to another. "She said you guys were probably going to break up anyway," Nathan said. "She said you've been talking about seeing other people." I stared at him. "When did I ever say that?" "She said." He trailed off, and I could see the realization hitting him. "Oh shit, she played me, didn't she?" Nathan told me that Sarah had been feeding him a completely different narrative about our relationship. She told him I was emotionally distant, possibly cheating, and that I'd been talking about wanting to explore other options. She painted herself as trapped in an unhappy relationship with someone who didn't appreciate her. She'd come over after you guys fought, Nathan said. She'd be crying, saying how she just wanted to feel wanted by someone. What fights? I asked. We barely fight. That's when the full picture started coming together. Sarah had been creating drama in our relationship that I wasn't even aware of, then running to Nathan to play the victim. She'd tell him I'd said things I never said, done things I never did. Nathan thought he was being a good friend by providing a shoulder to cry on. But here's the really sick part. Nathan admitted that Sarah had been the one to suggest he start making excuses for me with our other friends. She said you were embarrassed about having relationship problems and didn't want them to see you struggling, he said. She said it would be kinder to give you space to work things out. I felt like I was going to throw up. This woman had orchestrated my isolation so thoroughly that even my best friend thought he was protecting me while he was sleeping with my girlfriend. Nathan was crying at this point. Dude, I thought I was helping. She made it sound like you didn't want to be around us anyway. She said you'd been complaining about how immature we all were. The manipulation was so sophisticated it was terrifying. Sarah had managed to isolate me from my friends while making it seem like it was my choice, drive a wedge between me and Nathan while positioning herself as the victim, and extract thousands of dollars from me while making it seem like I was being a supportive boyfriend. Nathan begged me to forgive him. He said he'd been planning to tell me everything because he'd started to suspect Sarah was lying about things. He said some of the stories she told him about our relationship didn't match the person he knew me to be. I should have trusted my gut, he said. I should have talked to you directly instead of believing everything she said. I told him I needed time to process everything, but that I appreciated his honesty. The messed up thing is, I actually feel bad for him too. Sarah had manipulated both of us, just in different ways. When I got back to Marcus's place, I found 17 text messages from Sarah. She'd apparently figured out that I'd talked to Nathan. The messages started sweet, "Baby, please call me, I love you," and quickly escalated to angry, "You're destroying our relationship over nothing." And then to desperate, "I'll do anything to fix this, please don't throw us away." The last message was the one that really got to me. Nathan told me what he said to you. He's lying because he's jealous of us. He's been trying to break us up for months. Don't let him win. Even caught red-handed, she was still trying to manipulate the situation, still trying to make Nathan the villain and herself the victim. I blocked her number. Marcus helped me make a plan. Tomorrow, I'm going to my apartment, where Sarah still has a key with Marcus as backup to get my important stuff. I'm going to stay with Marcus until I figure out my next move. My lease is up in 5 weeks, and there's no way I'm moving in with Sarah now. The hardest part is that I keep having moments where I miss her. My brain knows what she did, but my heart hasn't caught up yet. Marcus says this is normal for people who have been psychologically manipulated, but it's confusing as hell. I've also been reading about emotional abuse and financial manipulation online. The patterns fit perfectly. The love bombing at the beginning, the gradual isolation, the financial control disguised as emergencies, the gaslighting when I questioned anything. I apparently dated a textbook emotional abuser and didn't even realize it. The money is probably gone for good, but honestly, I'm more worried about my ability to trust people going forward. If I couldn't see through Sarah's manipulation, how will I know if it happens again? One thing that's been helpful is talking to the friends Nathan had been keeping me away from. They've all been incredibly supportive and angry on my behalf. Tom said he knew something was off when Nathan kept making excuses for me because it was so unlike me to flake on plans. I have one more conversation I need to have. I need to call Sarah's friend Emma, the one she was supposedly texting the night I discovered the Wi-Fi thing. I'm starting to wonder if Emma even exists, or if that was just another lie to explain why she wanted me to check her phone. This community has saved my sanity. Thank you for helping me realize I wasn't crazy, that the red flags were real, and that I deserved better than what I was accepting. Edit. Several people have asked if I'm pressing charges or pursuing the money legally. I've been researching it, but it's complicated because I willingly gave her the money, even if it was under false pretenses. I called Emma. She exists, but she told me Sarah had never mentioned bringing anyone along that night. Another small lie in a web of massive ones. Thank you to everyone sharing resources about financial abuse and manipulation. I'm starting to understand that what happened to me has a name and that I'm not the first person to go through this. Final update. Posted 3 days ago. It's been 3 months since I discovered the Wi-Fi connection that unraveled my entire life, and I wanted to give you all a final update. First, the practical stuff. I found a new apartment across town and moved in 6 weeks ago. It's smaller than what Sarah and I had planned, but it's mine, and that feels incredible. I'm slowly rebuilding my savings. It's going to take a while to recover from the $4,200 I lost, but I've learned to see it as the cost of my freedom. Sarah tried everything to get me back. After I blocked her number, she created fake social media accounts to message me. She showed up at my work twice before I had to involve HR. She even tried to get to me through my family. She called my mom and told her I was having a mental breakdown and needed help. Thankfully, my mom saw right through it and told Sarah never to contact our family again. When those things didn't work, she even tried to use Nathan to get to me. About a month after everything came out, Nathan called me crying. Sarah had contacted him, claiming she was pregnant and that it might be his baby. She wanted him to convince me to take her back because we were a family now. It was a lie, of course. Nathan insisted she take a pregnancy test in front of him, and surprise, not pregnant. But the fact that she was willing to fake a pregnancy to manipulate us both still gives me chills. Marcus has become one of my closest friends through all this. He's helped me realize that real friends don't try to control or manipulate you. They support your growth and independence. One thing that still amazes me is how different my life feels now. I have energy again. I'm excited about things again. I didn't realize how much of my mental and emotional resources Sarah had been consuming until they were freed up. It took a random Wi-Fi connection to wake me up, but I'm so grateful it happened when it did. Moving in with Sarah would have made leaving even harder. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the best thing that could have happened. Thank you, Reddit, for helping me see clearly when I was lost in the fog of manipulation. You literally saved my life. Edit. For those asking about the money, I've accepted it's gone. $4,200 is a small price to pay for my freedom and my future. We've basically been on a break. Guess you're slower than I thought, she said. I thought I was living in a relationship. Turns out I was just a side character in her performance. I got played right inside my own home. So my girlfriend just rewrote 2 years of our relationship history to justify cheating. I need you guys to tell me I'm not losing my mind here. I've been with Vanessa for 2 years, living together in my apartment for the past 8 months. Things weren't perfect lately. We'd been having some tension and weren't as intimate as usual, but I thought that was normal relationship stuff. You know how it is. Work gets busy, life gets stressful, and sometimes the romance takes a backseat. Looking back now, maybe I was blind to some signs. She'd been more distant, spending more time on her phone, getting irritated over small things. But honestly, I attributed it to work stress. Her company was going through layoffs, and she'd been pulling long hours trying to prove herself. I actually tried to be supportive by giving her space and handling more of the household stuff. Last Friday morning, Vanessa told me she was going to visit her sister Emma for the weekend. Said Emma was going through a really rough divorce and needed emotional support. Emma lives about 3 hours away, so it made sense she'd stay overnight. Take as much time as you need, I told her while making coffee. Emma's lucky to have you. She gave me this weird look I couldn't read at the time. Yeah, well, family comes first, right? She left Friday evening around 6 p.m. Kissed me goodbye like normal and said she'd be back Sunday evening. I told her to drive safe and text me when she got there. She did text me around 9 p.m., made it safe. Emma's a mess, but we're talking through everything. Love you. I sent back heart emojis and told her I loved her too. Saturday, I had a pretty normal day. It felt kind of nice having the place to myself, if I'm being honest. We've been on top of each other a lot lately, with both of us working from home sometimes. Saturday night around 10 p.m., I get a text from my buddy Jake. Dude, isn't that Vanessa at the Marriott downtown? With a photo attached. My stomach dropped through the floor. Clear as day, Vanessa walking into the hotel lobby with some guy I didn't recognize. She was wearing the black dress she usually saves for date nights with me. The guy had his hand on her lower back in a way that was definitely not platonic. I stared at that photo for probably 10 minutes straight, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. I called her immediately. It rang once, then went straight to voicemail. That never happens, her phone is always on. I tried again 5 minutes later. Same thing. Then I tried calling from my work phone in case she was screening my calls. Straight to voicemail again. I spent the entire night pacing my apartment, checking her social media, nothing posted, calling every hour. By Sunday morning, I was a wreck. I'd barely slept and I felt sick to my stomach. I kept looking at that photo, zooming in, trying to convince myself it wasn't really her. Sunday afternoon, I tried calling Emma directly. I'd only met her a few times, but I had her number from when we all went to their mom's birthday last year. Oh, hi, Chris. Emma sounded surprised. Is everything okay? Hey, Emma, I just wanted to check on you. Vanessa said you were going through a tough time with the divorce. Long pause. Divorce? What divorce? Mark and I are fine. The world tilted. Wait, what? Vanessa said she was coming to see you this weekend because you needed support. Chris, I haven't talked to Vanessa in like 2 months. I thanked Emma and hung up. Then I literally had to sit down just to process it all. Vanessa had lied about everything. Sunday evening, she came home around 7 p.m., acting completely normal. Dropped her bag by the door, kicked off her shoes, asked about my weekend like nothing happened. How was your time with Emma? I asked, watching her face carefully. Exhausting, she sighed dramatically. Divorce drama is so draining. She's better now, though. We talked through a lot of stuff. I'm watching her lie directly to my face and I can barely breathe. My heart was pounding so hard I thought she could hear it. That's good that you could help her, I said quietly. Yeah, well, you know how protective I am of family. She came over and kissed my cheek. What did you do while I was gone? I waited until she was settled on the couch, then pulled out my phone. Actually, I wanted to ask you about something. Jake sent me this yesterday. I showed her the photo. The color drained from her face completely, but only for about 2 seconds. Then her expression hardened and she got defensive. You had me followed. What the hell, Chris? Jake happened to be downtown for dinner and saw you. Who is that guy, Vanessa? She stared at the photo for a long moment and I could practically see her calculating what to say. Finally, she sat down across from me and sighed like I was being unreasonable. That's Patrick, my ex. I felt like the ground was falling away beneath me. Your ex? You told me you were visiting your sister. I just called Emma Vanessa. She's not getting divorced. She hasn't even seen you in months. Another pause. Then, okay, look, Chris, we've basically been on a break the past month. You know things haven't been good between us. I stared at her in complete shock. A break? What are you talking about? We never discussed any break. Come on, Chris. Look at how we've been acting lately. When's the last time we were really intimate? When's the last time we went on a real date or had a meaningful conversation? We've been like roommates living parallel lives. So because we hit a rough patch, that automatically means we're on a break. That's not how relationships work, Vanessa. You don't just decide that we're broken up and start seeing your ex. She rolled her eyes like I was being dramatic. I figured someone as smart as you would pick up on the signals and realize where this was heading. Guess you're slower than I thought. That hit me like a physical slap. Here I was, finding out my girlfriend of 2 years spent the weekend with her ex-boyfriend, lied about where she was going, and now she was calling me slow for not realizing we were on a break that was never once discussed or agreed upon. Did you sleep with him? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Long pause, she looked away. We reconnected, yes. Did you sleep with him? Chris, we're adults. Patrick and I have history. It wasn't planned, it just happened. I had to leave the room before I said something I'd regret. I went to the bathroom and splashed cold water on my face. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. I looked hollow, shocked. When I came back, she was sitting there scrolling through her phone, looking annoyed rather than guilty. So let me get this straight, I said, sitting back down. You decided we were on a break without telling me, lied about visiting your sister, spent the weekend with your ex in a hotel, and somehow I'm the problem for being upset about this. Don't be so dramatic, Chris. These things happen in relationships when people grow apart. We can work through this if you stop being so black and white about everything. Work through this. You cheated on me, Vanessa. You planned it, you lied about it, and now you're trying to rewrite history to make it my fault. I didn't cheat, we were on a break. We were not on a break, we never discussed a break. We were still saying, I love you every day. We were still sleeping in the same bed. We were still planning things together. You don't get to retroactively declare us broken up because you wanted to sleep with your ex. She stood up and crossed her arms. Fine, Chris, be angry, but Patrick reminded me what it feels like to be with someone who actually wants me, who makes effort, who doesn't take me for granted. That was it. I was done. Get out. What? Get out of my sight. Go to your room or wherever. I don't care. I can't look at you right now. She stomped off to the bedroom and slammed the door. I sat on my couch and tried to figure out what the hell just happened to my life. Reddit, am I crazy? Is this how breaks work? Because I thought you had to actually discuss and agree to a break for it to be real. I'm sitting here feeling like I'm living in an alternate reality where cheating is just reconnecting, and I'm supposed to be grateful she came home to me instead of staying with him. Edit to answer common questions. No, we absolutely never discussed a break. Not once. If anything, I only thought we were working through a rough patch like normal couples do. Going to have a serious conversation with her tomorrow about where we go from here. Pretty sure I already know where this is heading though. Update 1. Posted 2 weeks ago, so yesterday morning I sat Vanessa down and told her I wanted to end the relationship. I'd spent the whole night thinking and reading your comments, and I realized this wasn't something I could come back from. I was calm, direct, and as fair as I could be under the circumstances. Her immediate response was tears. Big, dramatic sobbing. Chris, you're throwing away 2 years over one mistake. I chose you. I came home to you. Patrick wanted me to stay, but I chose us. You didn't choose us when you planned to spend the weekend with him, then lied to my face. It wasn't planned, it just happened. We ran into each other and one thing led to another. Vanessa, you packed a bag, you drove 3 hours in the opposite direction from Emma's house. You checked into a hotel together. That's not just happening, that's planning. When the crying didn't work, she switched to bargaining mode. Started talking about couples counseling, how she'd do anything to fix this, how Patrick meant nothing and was just a moment of weakness during a confusing time in our relationship. We can work through this, Chris. All couples go through rough patches. If you really loved me, you'd fight for us instead of just giving up. I stayed firm. I'm not giving up on anything, Vanessa. You already ended this relationship when you decided to sleep with Patrick. I'm just accepting reality. That's when she started getting angry. The mask slipped and I saw something I'd never seen before, this cold calculation behind her eyes. Where exactly am I supposed to go? I gave up my lease to move in with you. I don't have anywhere else to live. You have 30 days to find a place. That's more than fair. She stared at me like I'd slapped her. Then she tried a completely different approach. She came over and sat right next to me on the couch, put her hand on my thigh. Started talking in this soft, breathy voice about how good we were together, how this was just a bump in the road, how we could be stronger than ever. You know you still love me, Chris. You know what we have is special. Don't throw it all away because of one night. When she leaned in to kiss me, I moved away. Don't. Chris, baby, you know you still want me. I can see it in your eyes. We can work through this together. I stood up, feeling disgusted. Are you seriously trying to seduce me right now? After what you did, do you think I'm that pathetic? I'm trying to remind you what we have together, what we could have again. What we had, past tense. That version of us died when you decided to cheat on me. She got really pissed then and her true colors came out. You know what, Chris? Maybe I should call a lawyer, tenant rights and all that. You can't just kick someone out without proper notice. I could fight this. I almost laughed. Go ahead and call whoever you want. You're not on the lease, you don't pay rent, you have no legal claim to this place. Any lawyer worth their fee will tell you that you're essentially a guest who's overstayed their welcome. That shut her up real quick. I could see her realizing that her threats were empty. The rest of the day was tense. She kept trying different approaches, crying, angry outbursts, trying to guilt me about abandoning her, attempting to be seductive. She even tried to put the blame on Patrick, saying he had somehow manipulated her. It was like watching someone cycle through a playbook of manipulation tactics. When none of the tactics she tried worked, she switched to the silent treatment, which honestly is a relief. But I can tell she's plotting something. She keeps making hushed phone calls and gets quiet when I walk by. Yesterday, I heard her talking to someone about legal options and tenant rights. 26 days left. Honestly, I just want her gone so I can start processing this and moving on. Update 2. Posted 1 week ago. Jesus Christ. You guys warned me, and I still wasn't prepared for this level of calculated manipulation and vindictive behavior. I feel like I'm living with a complete stranger who looks like my ex-girlfriend. So here's what's happened in the past week. Remember how I gave her a credit card linked to my account for emergencies and shared expenses when she moved in? Yeah, well, apparently our breakup constitutes a massive shopping emergency. She's charged over $2,300 in the past week. Designer clothes from Nordstrom, expensive dinners at restaurants we used to go to together, a full spa day package, high-end makeup, even a massage and facial combo. When I confronted her about it, she had the audacity to say, "Well, I'm stressed about being made homeless. Retail therapy helps me cope." Vanessa, you're not homeless. You have 30 days to find a place and you have a job and savings. This is financial abuse, Chris. You're trying to control me with money. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Financial abuse is charging $2,300 on someone else's credit card without permission, which is exactly what you just did. I've been using that card for months. You never had a problem with it before. That was when we were together and you were buying groceries and necessities, not revenge shopping, because I won't let you cheat on me without consequences. I immediately called the credit card company and canceled the card. She screamed at me for 20 minutes about controlling behavior and how I was showing my true colors. The irony was not lost on me. She's also been systematically calling our mutual friends with her sob story, but she's not just seeking support. She's actively trying to turn them against me. According to her version of events, I'm abandoning her over one tiny mistake and throwing her out on the streets like trash because I'm jealous and controlling. She's conveniently leaving out the lying, the planning, the weekend-long affair, and her complete lack of remorse. My friend Mike called me Wednesday. "Dude," Vanessa called crying. She says you're being really harsh about some misunderstanding. Maybe you guys should work things out. She seems really sorry. I had to explain the whole situation again from the beginning. Once Mike heard the actual facts, he immediately apologized and said he'd only gotten her manipulated version. The same thing happened with 3 other friends. She's been methodically going through our social circle, getting to them before I can, and poisoning the well. I'm realizing I need to be more proactive about telling people what really happened before she gets to them with her lies. This is the part that really shows how vindictive and calculating she's become. Tuesday night, I come home from work around 7 p.m., and there's some random dude sitting on my couch like he owns the place. They're watching MY Netflix on MYTV, drinking my beer, and she's got her legs draped over his lap like they're a couple. "Who the hell is this?" I asked, not even trying to hide my anger. "This is David," she says casually, like it's the most normal thing in the world. "We met at Starbucks today. We're just hanging out and getting to know each other." I looked at this guy, some hipster douche with a man bun and expensive sneakers. "You need to leave, right now." David looked confused and a little scared. Vanessa said this was her place too, and I don't care what she said. This is my apartment and you need to get the hell out. "Chris, you're being so rude," Vanessa protested. "I'm allowed to have friends over." Not in my home, get out, I told David directly. After he left, I told Vanessa this was completely unacceptable. You're bringing random men you just met into my home. What the hell is wrong with you? It's not like we're together anymore, Chris. I can see whoever I want and hang out with whoever I want. Not in my apartment, you can't. This is my home, not some hookup spot for you to parade random guys through. God, you're so possessive. This is exactly why our relationship fell apart. Our relationship fell apart because you cheated on me with your ex. Don't try to rewrite history. She got this smug, calculated look that I'd never seen before. Well, maybe I should invite Patrick over next time. At least he knows how to treat a woman right. That's when I realized this wasn't just about moving on or finding comfort. She was actively trying to hurt me as much as possible. Thursday night she brought home a different guy. Friday it was a third one. Each time acting like it was completely normal and I was the crazy one for being upset about strangers in my space. Saturday morning I'd had enough. I sat her down and said, "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to stop bringing unauthorized people to my apartment immediately. You're going to stop lying to our friends about what happened between us. And you're going to start actually looking for a place to live instead of playing these games." "Or what?" she challenged. "Or I'm going to start documenting everything for legal purposes. The credit card fraud, the harassment, the trespassing, all of it. Legal purposes," she laughed, but I could see uncertainty in her eyes. "You gonna sue me, Chris? For what?" "Credit card fraud for starters, charging $2,300 without permission on an account you're not authorized to use. Harassment for your campaign to turn our friends against me with lies. Maybe criminal trespass for bringing unauthorized people into my home after I've explicitly told you not to." Her face changed completely. I could see the wheels turning as she realized I wasn't just making empty threats. "You wouldn't actually try me, Vanessa. You want to play games and try to destroy my life because I won't accept being cheated on. Let's see how that works out for you in court. I guarantee you won't like how it ends." She got very quiet and serious then. "You're threatening me. I'm promising you. Keep pushing and see what happens. I've been trying to handle this civilly by giving you 30 days to leave on your own, but if you want to escalate this into legal territory, I'm prepared for that too." For the first time since this whole thing started, she looked actually scared. She's been researching apartments on her laptop ever since that conversation and hasn't brought anyone over. 11 days left. I think I'm finally getting through to her that this is really happening and her manipulation tactics aren't going to work. Edit. For those saying I should have kicked her out immediately, legally, I had to give her proper notice even though she's not on the lease. I wanted to do this by the book so she couldn't claim I illegally evicted her. Yes, I'm documenting everything now. Screenshots of the credit card charges, photos of the random guys she brought over, text records of her threats and admissions. If she wants to play legal games, I'm prepared. Final update. Posted 3 days ago, it's over. Vanessa moved out yesterday morning, and I feel like I can breathe again for the first time in 3 weeks. After my last update, she finally realized I was dead serious about the legal consequences. My threat to document everything and pursue legal action really scared her. She knows credit card fraud is a real crime with real consequences, not just relationship drama she could spin. She spent the next few days actually apartment hunting for real. She found a place with 2 roommates across town. From what I overheard of her phone calls, it's not nearly as nice as my place, but that's not my problem anymore. The last 7 days were tense but mostly peaceful. She stopped bringing random men over and cut back on the manipulation tactics, though she did make a few more attempts, to no avail, of course. Old habits die hard, I suppose. I stayed in my bedroom with the door closed while they moved her stuff. I could hear them talking and laughing like this was just a normal moving day, not the end of a 2-year relationship that she destroyed. The casual tone of it all was actually helpful. It reminded me that I meant so little to her that losing me wasn't even worth being sad about. Before she left, she knocked on my bedroom door. "Chris, can we talk for just a minute?" I opened the door but didn't invite her in. "What?" "I just want you to know that you're going to regret this. What we had was special, and you're throwing it away because you can't forgive one mistake. I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt nothing. No love, no anger, no regret. Just tired relief that this was almost over. What we had was built on trust and honesty. You destroyed both of those things and then tried to convince me it was my fault. I don't regret protecting myself from someone who could lie to my face and then call me slow for being hurt about it. She didn't have an answer for that, just stared at me for a few seconds, then turned and walked away. I changed the locks immediately, had a locksmith on standby, called the credit card company to confirm the account was completely secure, and got a new card with a different number. Then I ordered pizza, opened a beer, and watched football in MY apartment in complete peace. The silence was incredible. No tension, no walking on eggshells, no manipulation attempts. Just quiet, peaceful solitude in my own space. Reddit, thank you. Seriously. Your comments really helped me stay strong. You reminded me what normal looks like when I was drowning in manipulation and lies. I'm doing really well now. Actually excited about being single for the first time in years. I've got my self-respect, my home, my friends, the real ones who didn't fall for her manipulation, and my peace of mind. She's got Patrick and a sketchy living situation with roommates. I think I came out ahead. Edit. For those asking about Patrick, honestly, I almost feel sorry for the guy. He has no idea what he's getting himself into. She showed him her best behavior for one weekend, but he's about to learn what happens when the mask comes off. But that's not my problem anymore. Yes, I'm keeping the evidence I collected just in case she tries any legal bullshit later. But honestly, I think she's too busy enjoying her freedom with Patrick to bother me anymore. The saga is complete. Time to move forward.
We need about $25,000 per year for each of them, my mom said. I owe you nothing, I replied. 3 months later, my stepsister asked to meet me in person. I'm 32 now, but my story begins when I was 16, and my world collapsed around me. Today, I run my own software development company with 30 employees and offices in 3 cities. I've built a life I'm proud of, brick by painful brick. I never expected my mother to reappear after 16 years of silence, especially not to demand tens of thousands of dollars for the children she chose over me. Until I was 12, it was just my mother, Victoria, and me in a cramped 2-bedroom apartment. We struggled financially, but we had each other. Mom worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat, and I learned early to be self-sufficient. I cooked simple meals, did my homework without being told, and tried to be the least troublesome kid possible. I knew how hard she worked, and I loved her fiercely for it. Everything changed when she met Robert. He had a good job as a construction manager, owned his own home, and drove a new truck. He seemed nice enough at first, though he never really tried to connect with me. I was cautiously optimistic that our lives might get easier. 6 months after they started dating, Mom announced they were getting married, and we moved into Robert's house. A month after the wedding, Mom shared the news that she was pregnant. I was 13 by then, and while I felt a twinge of uncertainty, I tried to be happy for her. She glowed with excitement, decorating the nursery and talking endlessly about the baby. Robert became more present, more engaged, but never with me. His eyes would slide past me at the dinner table as if I were a piece of furniture rather than a person. The first noticeable shift came when Mom stopped attending my school events. My band concert, my debate team finals. She was too tired from the pregnancy. I understood, or tried to. But when Robert complained about the cost of my school activities, suggesting they were an unnecessary expense with a baby on the way, Mom didn't defend me. She just looked down at her swollen belly and changed the subject. Grace was born when I was 14, a colicky, demanding baby who consumed every ounce of Mom's attention. I pitched in, learning to change diapers and warm bottles, hopping to ease Mom's exhaustion and maybe earn back some of her focus. Instead, Robert began commenting on how much it cost to support someone else's kid. Mom never contradicted him. When I was 15, Mom announced she was pregnant again. By then, I was working weekends at a local grocery store, using my earnings for my own clothes and school supplies. I handed over half my paycheck to help with household expenses, thinking it might make Robert see me as less of a burden. It didn't. Jackson arrived just before my 16th birthday. We'd moved to a larger house by then, but somehow I ended up with the smallest bedroom, little more than a converted office space. My old furniture didn't fit, so I slept on a futon while Grace and Jackson got matching bedroom sets for their spacious rooms. When I mentioned the disparity, Mom told me I should be grateful to have my own space at all. The breaking point came 3 months after Jackson's birth. I overheard Robert telling Mom they should use my college fund, money my grandparents had been adding to since my birth, for a kitchen renovation. Something inside me cracked at her casual dismissal of my future. When I confronted her, her eyes hardened in a way I'd never seen before. "You've never been grateful for anything Robert has done for you," she said, her voice flat. "He's right about you." 2 weeks later, they sat me down for what they called a family meeting. Robert did most of the talking, explaining how expensive it was to raise 3 children, how the babies needed more space and resources. "You're practically an adult now," he said while Mom stared at the kitchen table. "You need to learn independence." Mom finally looked up. "We've talked to your grandparents. They've agreed to take you in. We need to focus on Grace and Jackson now. They're just little and need us more." I had 2 weeks to pack my things and leave the only home I'd known for the past 4 years. My grandparents, my biological father's parents, were stunned when I called them. They'd been told I was having trouble adjusting and needed a more structured environment. The truth left them speechless. Within hours, they'd arranged to pick me up that weekend, unwilling to leave me in that house a moment longer than necessary. My Aunt Sophia, my father's sister, drove 5 hours to help me move. She cried when she saw how few boxes contained my life. Mom maintained her distance during the move, offering hollow platitudes about how this is for the best and you'll understand someday. Robert made no pretense of regret. He carried my futon to the truck with barely concealed satisfaction. The day I left, Mom hugged me stiffly and said she'd call soon. She never did. My grandparents welcomed me with open arms and genuine love, but the adjustment was brutal. I had nightmares for months, reliving the moment Mom chose her new family over me. I threw myself into schoolwork and my job at the local hardware store, determined to need as little financial help as possible. My grandparents insisted on paying for my necessities, but I covered everything else, saving whatever I could for college. Therapy helped me process the abandonment, though the wound never fully healed. My therapist helped me understand that Mom's choices reflected her weaknesses, not my worth. Slowly, I rebuilt my sense of self. My grandparents and Aunt Sophia became my foundation, showing me what unconditional love actually looked like. I graduated high school near the top of my class and earned a partial scholarship to a state university, studying computer science. I worked 30 hours a week throughout college, taking summer classes to graduate early. My professors became mentors, impressed by my drive. One connected me with an internship that turned into my first real job after graduation. I advanced quickly, working longer hours than anyone else, taking on the projects no one wanted. By 25, I was leading a development team. By 27, I had enough industry connections and savings to launch my own company. The venture succeeded beyond my expectations, growing from 3 employees to 30 in just 2 years. Throughout those 16 years, I received no contact from my mother or Robert. Through extended family, I occasionally heard updates about Grace and Jackson, their school achievements, their hobbies, their apparent happiness. I felt nothing beyond a vague curiosity, like hearing about distant cousins rather than half-siblings. Then, on an ordinary Tuesday, an email arrived from an address I hadn't seen in 16 years, Victoria Martin at email.com. The subject line read simply, "Reconnecting." The message was bizarrely casual, as if we'd simply lost touch rather than her abandoning me. She mentioned hearing about my business success and said she had family matters to discuss. She suggested meeting for coffee that weekend. I stared at the screen for nearly an hour, emotions cycling through me like a hurricane. Curiosity, anger, a childish flicker of hope. I forwarded the email to my therapist, who suggested that closure might come from hearing what she had to say, provided I met her on my terms in a public place with clear boundaries. After 3 days of internal debate, I replied with a brief agreement to meet at a coffee shop near my office, neutral territory where I could easily leave if necessary. Seeing her after 16 years was surreal. She'd aged significantly, her once dark hair now streaked with gray, lines etching her face that hadn't been there before. Robert sat beside her, heavier and balder than I remembered, his expression guarded. I'd expected to feel an emotional tidal wave, but instead found a strange detachment, as if I were meeting distant acquaintances rather than the woman who gave birth to me. Mom hugged me awkwardly while Robert extended a stiff hand. They commented on how well I looked, how impressed they were with my accomplishments. Mom spoke as if our separation had been a mutual decision, a normal launching of an independent child rather than a traumatic abandonment. After 15 minutes of shallow conversation about the weather and local news, Mom finally reached the purpose of our meeting. "Your sister and brother are heading to college next year," she said, her tone shifting to something more familiar, the voice she'd used when asking neighbors for favors. "Grace got into Cornell and Jackson's going to NYU. We're so proud." Robert leaned forward. "College isn't cheap these days. The housing alone at these schools is astronomical." "We've heard about your success," Mom continued, her eyes not quite meeting mine. "The business is doing very well from what we understand." I remained silent, watching the performance unfold. "We think it's only fair you help with their tuition," she finally said. "They're your siblings after all, and family helps family." Robert nodded vigorously. "We need about $25,000 per year for each of them. We'll need the first payment by August." The audacity stunned me into momentary silence. 16 years without a single call, message, or birthday card. 16 years of building my life from the ashes of their rejection. And now they sat before me, not with apologies or regret, but with hands outstretched, expecting tens of thousands of dollars. "Let me make sure I understand," I said carefully. "You want me to pay $50,000 a year for the college education of siblings I haven't seen since they were toddlers?" Mom's smile faltered. "Their family, your brother and sister." "I'm sorry, but I won't be doing that," I replied, my voice steady despite the anger building in my chest. Her expression shifted from expectant to incredulous. "After everything we did for you." The absurdity of her statement might have made me laugh if it weren't so painful. "What exactly did you do for me? Throw me away when I became inconvenient?" "I raised you for 16 years, she hissed, abandoning the friendly facade. "This is how you repay me." "I owe you nothing," I said quietly. "I owe them nothing." Robert's face reddened. "You ungrateful little—" "I think we're done here," I interrupted, standing to leave. Mom grabbed my wrist, her fingers digging in with surprising strength. "You'll help your siblings or you're dead to me." I gently but firmly removed her hand. "You made me dead to you 16 years ago when you chose them over me." Her scream echoed through the coffee shop as I walked toward the door. "How dare you? After everything we sacrificed, you wouldn't have your precious company if I hadn't taught you to work hard." Customers turned to stare as Robert tried to quiet her, his own face contorted with rage. The manager stepped toward their table, concern evident in his expression. I left without looking back, but the confrontation was far from over. By that evening, my phone was flooded with texts and calls from both of them, alternating between guilt trips and threats. They found my company email and social media profiles, sending messages that became increasingly hostile when I didn't respond. The harassment escalated over the next 2 weeks. They showed up at my office unannounced, causing a scene in the lobby until security escorted them out. They contacted extended family members with fabricated stories about me refusing to help my destitute family. They even reached out to my grandparents, who promptly blocked their numbers after hearing their demands. When they began contacting my clients through LinkedIn, claiming I was defrauding my own family, I'd had enough. I consulted with an attorney who documented the pattern of harassment and helped me file for a restraining order. We sent a formal cease and desist letter, which they ignored, continuing their campaign of harassment with seemingly no concern for potential consequences. The court hearing was set for a Tuesday morning in early June. I arrived with my attorney and a binder full of evidence, screenshots of messages, security footage from my office, witness statements from employees who'd seen their disruptive behavior. Mom and Robert arrived without legal representation, apparently confident in the righteousness of their position. When the judge asked them to explain their actions, Mom launched into a tearful speech about parental rights and family obligations. She claimed I'd abandoned them years ago, cutting off contact out of teenage rebellion. Robert nodded solemnly beside her, occasionally adding details to her fictional narrative. My attorney methodically dismantled their story, presenting the documentation of their harassment along with affidavits from my grandparents and aunt detailing the circumstances of my removal from their home. The judge's expression grew increasingly troubled as the truth emerged. "So to clarify," the judge said, addressing my mother, You asked your child to leave your home at age 16, had no contact for 16 years, and then expected financial support for your other children's education. Mom's tearful confidence wavered under his incredulous gaze. He's successful now. He can afford to help his family. Ms. Martin, the judge replied, the law doesn't recognize any obligation for siblings to financially support each other, particularly under these circumstances. The restraining order was granted, prohibiting them from contacting me or anyone associated with my business for a period of 3 years. As the judge announced his decision, Mom's face crumpled in shock and humiliation. For the first time since I'd known him, Robert looked afraid. The aftermath rippled through our extended family. Some relatives criticized me for being unforgiving, suggesting I should be the bigger person despite the harassment. Others expressed support, having witnessed Mom's behavior over the years. My grandparents and Aunt Sophia stood unwaveringly by my side, proud of me for protecting the life I'd built. 3 months after the court hearing, an unexpected email arrived. The sender was Grace Martin 98 at email.com with the subject line, "Can we talk?" The message was brief and tentative. "You don't know me, but I'm your sister. I'd like to meet if you're willing. No mom, no dad, just me. I understand if you say no." I consulted my therapist again, cautious about reopening wounds or exposing myself to further manipulation. After careful consideration, I agreed to meet Grace at a public park the following weekend. She was tall and slender, with Mom's dark hair and a nervous smile. She spotted me immediately, approaching with hesitant steps. We sat at a bench overlooking a small pond, awkward silence stretching between us until she finally spoke. "I found out what they did to you. The real story, not their version." She explained that she discovered letters from my grandparents in the attic while looking for old photos, correspondence that contradicted everything she'd been told about my departure. Confronting our parents had led to a blow-up where the truth finally emerged. "I'm sorry for what they did," she said softly, "and for what they tried to do now." Unlike Jackson, who had sided with our parents in their entitlement, Grace had been horrified by their behavior and their expectations. She'd moved out of their house, finding roommates and a job to support herself while attending community college rather than Cornell. "I don't want their help if it comes with those kinds of strings," she explained. "And I definitely didn't want help extorted from you." Over the following months, Grace and I built a cautious relationship based on mutual respect rather than obligation. I helped her with job applications and academic advice, but offered no financial support beyond occasional coffees and meals together. She never asked for more, understanding the boundaries necessary for our fragile connection to grow. 6 months after the restraining order was issued, I heard through family that Mom and Robert had been telling people I'd abandoned the family after becoming successful, apparently hoping to salvage their reputation. Grace reported they'd cut her off when she refused to stop seeing me, adding her to the list of children they'd discarded when convenient. By the 1-year mark of our reconnection, Grace had transferred to a state university on a partial scholarship, maintaining her independence while pursuing her education. We'd settled into a comfortable pattern of monthly dinners and regular texts, building the kind of relationship that should have been possible years earlier. My grandparents were initially wary of Grace, protective of me after everything that had happened. But her genuine remorse for our parents' actions and her determination to forge her own path eventually won them over. Watching them welcome her into their home for Thanksgiving dinner brought an unexpected sense of healing. Jackson remained aligned with our parents, occasionally sending hostile messages to Grace about her betrayal. She shared some with me, revealing the toxic environment I'd escaped years earlier. Whatever guilt I might have harbored for not helping with his education evaporated when I read his entitled, angry words. The experience reinforced what I'd learned through years of therapy and rebuilding. Family isn't defined by blood or obligation. It's created through respect, support, and genuine care. My mother never understood that fundamental truth, seeing relationships only through the lens of what she could gain from them. I don't know if I'll ever fully heal from being discarded by the person who should have loved me most unconditionally. But I've built a life filled with people who choose to stand by me, not because of obligation or financial benefit, but because of who I am. My company continues to thrive. My relationship with my grandparents and aunt grows stronger each year, and now, unexpectedly, I have a sister who chose integrity over comfort. Some people have suggested I should feel smug about my success in the face of my mother's expectations. The truth is, I don't. There's no satisfaction in watching someone reveal the worst parts of themselves, especially someone you once loved deeply. But there is profound peace in knowing I broke the cycle of conditional love that defined my childhood, creating boundaries that protect the life and relationships I've worked so hard to build. My mother taught me what family shouldn't be. Ironically, that painful lesson helped me recognize and cherish what family should be, a circle of mutual respect and genuine care that needs no court orders or legal threats to maintain. For that unintended gift, I suppose I should be grateful after all.